Now, Elon Musk's emphasis on engineering intelligent systems is going to influence the conversation for all of Twitter's 450 million users through a bunch of little nudges like recommendations and layouts, filters, which is why I almost made this video about how artificial intelligence is used at Twitter, but halfway through writing that script, I had a thought hit me like a ton of bricks. And I actually ended up rewriting this entire script even though I was almost done with it, because it occurred to me that almost every narrative that I've heard about Elon Musk is missing the punchline. So if what you really care about is what's going to happen to Twitter now that Elon Musk is the new CEO, it's like the layoff, the sentiment, the privacy, Elon's ego, none of that stuff is going to get you as close to the answer as this question. Is Elon Musk going to make you pay for Twitter with your attention or with your wallet? So let me explain what I mean. When I mean attention versus wallet, attention, I basically mean advertising. Are we going to be using Twitter for free and they're going to keep track of our data and put advertisements where they're relevant? Are they going to target them? Or are they going to charge us the $8 for a blue check mark? And then it's more like Netflix, where they make their money primarily off the 450 million users, and whatever percentage of them are willing to actually pony up the money for a monthly subscription cost. When you really think about engineering talent from Tesla coming over to Twitter with artificial intelligence on the cusp of solving a lot of people problems, and you realize that artificial intelligence can learn from the data it's given, then the type of data we give it, the type of goals we ask it to do, are going to drastically change the direction of Twitter. And in my mind, if you follow out either of those two paths, they end up in very, very different type of platform. And the reason why this took me a second to realize how impactful it is because first I had to think about the engineers coming over from Tesla to help, the engineers that he has reorganizing the company around artificial intelligence, then to think, okay, those systems are going to be fed data and they're going to learn how to do something. And depending on the business model, you feed them very different data and you get very different outcomes. That over time leads you to a very different Twitter. So one way for me to visualize this kind of a thing is to imagine an airplane taking off from a runway. If it is 1 degree to the left or 1 degree to the right, after 3 hours of flying, you're in a very different location. And if you don't course correct along the way, that little variation just blows up into being such a different world. And that's what will happen if they choose advertising as their primary source of revenue versus actually charging the users for a blue check mark. And I don't know if he's actually been clear on which direction he's going, because I heard the plan for $20 and then dropped it to $8 for the blue check mark, which sounds more like the Netflix model. But he inherited a company that had been cleaning up its act for a number of years trying to get advertisers on board. So it seems like it might be hard to just switch directions on that too. So it could go either way at this point. And I don't really know which direction he's going to take either. I mean, we've heard about the first $20, then drop to $8 plan to have the blue check mark, which sounds like it's going to be a more Netflix-style model. But then, on the other hand, he inherited a system that had been built for billions of dollars to help get advertisers injected into the right conversations and clean Twitter up. So in this video, instead of just telling you how AI has been implemented at Twitter, I'm going to take those logical conclusions down both of the two paths to try to help you understand the way I'm imagining a couple of the different outcomes over time. So on one hand, we have the advertisers, and if we go this direction, the artificial intelligence systems that are in place and the new ones coming online will be shaped to please an advertiser. So in that case, the systems are going to be in tune with what advertisers want. They're going to be looking at advertisers, saying what's working for them, what brings more money on the platform, and which actions and things can we do to manipulate the platform when the user is on it to maximize that engagement. Probably means like keeping different conversations on nice, tidy, clean lanes, something that can make a nice cluster that can be targeted with the right kind of advertising. It definitely means like a cleaner, safer platform, a place where advertisers feel a bit more comfortable with their brand floating around. It also means really getting into who you are as a person and what your purchasing habits are, because they want to get not just a lot of impressions, but a lot of click-through rates. And we'll go into that more later in the video. And then on the other hand, we can talk about a version of Twitter in like 3, 5, or 10 years where the primary source of revenue is actually people paying a subscription service. Now in this case, the term value to the user might mean different things. I mean, they could have IP that's unique in some sense that they don't have right now. That doesn't necessarily mean get people engaged with it as long as possible. It just means keep them happy enough to keep their credit cards on file, some sort of value to potentially more like an institutional user or individuals who are getting content the same way like Disney Plus or Netflix would give that to them, or the engagement is such that they're using it to either store data or to conversate with their family, and it becomes somewhat of a utility that they need to use. And the craziest thing was, I spent my entire last video, the last few days, really digging in on the technical aspects of Twitter. I was trying to think about what it means to have Elon Musk thinking more like a CTO, a Chief Technical Officer, instead of a CEO, a Chief Executive Officer who thinks more about business. And then I was thinking about the different engineers and what's possible, and it totally blew my mind that I had missed completely a decision that should be made by a CEO type mindset about where to get the revenue from. Who's asking that question? Okay, so let's talk about some of the high-level AI tools that are implemented at Twitter and how they might diverge throughout these different scenarios. So from a user point of view, let's start by thinking about the Netflix model. So if you're actually, from the CEO position, making money based on how many people subscribe, you're looking for retention and you're looking for the amount of overall credit cards that are basically on file. So in that case, what you really want somebody to do is feel ownership over the content that they're creating. You want them to feel a need to continue paying that subscription. So getting your ID checked would probably be a more important role, saying there's just one person, we verified their account, this is who they are, and what they say matters, and what they say they want to broadcast out on the internet, and they want that to be a representation of them that they're willing to continue paying for. Somewhat along the lines of owning a domain. In that case, artificial intelligence would take a much stronger stance on trying to find duplicate accounts, trying to do things like KYC, verifying IP addresses, making sure that people aren't influencing you or defaming you, because the user is the priority. Those are the people that you want to continue paying you. So if advertisers are your primary target, if that's where the money's coming from, when it comes to users, it doesn't seem like it's such a big deal if somebody has multiple emails or multiple accounts. In some ways, that's just them able to create different personas, and those personas can actually be in their own little bubbles. They might have their own patterns to it. And in fact, when they're logged in under those accounts and they're acting that way, that's more of a signal to the advertiser, and that's helpful, that's useful, and you might as well let that kind of stuff go more. So an advertiser-driven system is much more about getting in front of a crowd, and if you can do things to like get people riled up, people energized, people engaged, and then you can throw an advertisement on them. I think of it more like a town square, like a gathering. Like, where do advertisers in real life pay to be? At stadiums, in front of events, at concerts, because that's where a lot of eyeballs are at the same time. So in that way, you would want Twitter to really be this like big forum where a president or a political figure like says something and everybody just engages, and they can put an advertisement right there, and then preferably something that's maybe not political, something that the brand feels comfortable, depends on the product, but certainly the biggest brands, the Disneys and the Coca-Colas, they want to be associated with a bit more of a big gathering. So you want lots of big engagement, something like the World Cup that's happening right now, like that's boom, that's perfect. It's sports related, it's brand friendly, and it gets moments where just eyeballs are just glued and people are chatting and they have opinions and thoughts and they want to be part of something. Perfect for that kind of a business model. And just to get your head around how quick this all happens, every second on average there's 6,000 tweets. That corresponds to 350,000 tweets sent per minute, 500 million tweets per day, and around 200 billion tweets per year. Okay, and the only way to understand what all these people are talking about in one moment is to take slowly a bunch of data that you've seen before, a bunch of tweets, slow it down, have humans categorize it and say, okay, that one that looks like this was about sports, that one was not supposed to be on there, this one breaks some rule, this one is perfect for brands, this one's perfect for another brand, that kind of thing. And the only way that anybody could ever like get advertisers in those conversations directed based on that content is to teach a machine learning system from examples. So you would actually take a handful of random tweets, you would have a human tag them and say that one's brand friendly, that one's sports related, and all the other categories of advertisers you have, feed it into the system as training data, and it will get faster and faster at identifying those things instantly, injecting the right advertiser in there, and then just having it all happen instantly, getting the like 10 cents or whatever they charge for the ad and having that money just like accumulate, right? That's a little bit of a different system. And it's different because there's less room for error. Now, if you have Coca-Cola spending a lot of money to be in the middle of like a huge World Cup conversation on Twitter, and you're not pretty accurate at filtering out the really bad stuff, because a few examples of Coca-Cola showing up against something that, you can imagine is truly bad for their brand, they're gonna just wanna pull out and go to one of the platforms where they're doing it better. So you need the machine intelligence systems to be pretty much top notch, as good as the advertiser can find on any other platform. Now, on the other hand, if we go to the subscription model, now what you really want people to do is get value out of those conversations. It's not so important what you inject in there. So you want to train the machine to look at each person's history. What did they enjoy doing on Twitter? So actually a positive comment, or you could base it on how much time or how long they read for. And those kind of signals will be what the machine is learning to figure out what to show to somebody so that they're engaged with the most specific type of sports-related content. They might have a certain player that they're interested in, or they might have, I don't know, whatever little detail about the game they're just like fixated on, making sure that you kind of have some hints at what that is and getting it to them, because it doesn't matter if it's connected to an advertiser or not. What you care about is that person paying you another $8 or $20 next month, whatever your service costs. So they become different data sets, but then they influence what's shown to users, which then influences the data that they get back. And this is why you get that cyclical chicken or egg issue going either in this direction or in this direction, and you end up with such different platforms in the next 5 years. Okay, and the next category would be object identification. So imagine a photograph where you have a machine that says, oh, I see that there's a dog in there, or I see that there's a car in there, and what kind of car is it? What kind of product is in an image inside of a video, is being written about in text. So taking all those different types of media and pairing them up with real life objects or real life events, right? That kind of machine learning also drifts in a couple different directions. So starting with the advertising model, you're probably aware of it. What they care about is what's in there and what do advertisers sell. So if it's a car, they want to say, oh, is this person looking to buy a car? Because this is what they've been looking at on Twitter. Maybe we can put a car advertisement there and then, get a click, or whatever object it is that they're trying to sell. Something that could be on Amazon or an affiliate program. Like, they're very concerned about how you are, what you need out of the world, and if they can slide that advertisement in there. Okay, object identification from a user point of view is a little bit different, because if there's objects that are keeping your interest, say it's a person's face and they think, okay, this is somebody you might want to hear more from or follow, or they're giving you tips that you find valuable, then that's the kind of objects that they would be interested in finding more of to keep you engaged with that content directly. No advertiser needs to actually have a product there. They just need to know what it is in relation to your attention. In some sense, I would imagine that it's not so much object detection when it comes to a subscriber base as it is an emotional retention. So I think they would be more interested in training the machine on what's in an image and more what it feels like to look at it or interact with it or read it, because whether it's good or bad doesn't matter when it's not something I can buy. As long as it's there and it's got me addicted and it's got me interested, then they'll just double down on that because you'll keep your subscription. So anyways, I can go to like a whole bunch more examples. Machine learning obviously can do some amazing things, and even when it comes to like the layout of the platform and things like that. But the point is, I just want to get your head around the fact that like in no scenario do I think that Twitter is going to be cleaned up. They're just different versions of terrible. But one is like terrible in like a corporate advertising. It's going to just sort of make you feel like uncreative and boxed in. A little bit like I do feel when I'm on Facebook and sometimes YouTube, I hate to say it. But when I compare it to the other one, it also has like quite a bit of advantages that I think I would want, because the other version of Twitter, where it's more of a subscription-based model, then you're getting closer to something like OnlyFans, right? Because it doesn't need to be advertising friendly. It's about you being engaged. You're gonna end up with like more conspiracy theories and sort of like punchy comments that like really push the limits. You're gonna get more probably like kind of hardcore debates and people who are like pushing the fringe, because there just simply is a lot of engaging content that's just not advertiser friendly. The direction that Twitter would go in that case is more towards that. Now I'm kind of curious how this all turns out, because it's a really interesting thought to take a platform like Twitter that was going in the advertising direction, have someone like Elon Musk come in there, clean house, re-engineer it, and then introduce something like the blue check mark. If that really is the primary direction that Twitter goes, I don't know if we'll really have a great comparable. I would say OnlyFans is the only thing that even kind of feels right, but never before have you taken 450 million people and all this political energy and all of these people who have established their careers there and then changed that whole business model on them to see what happens. It's an experiment in real time. And in just my opinion, I think they're both kind of bad outcomes. I'm not a huge Twitter fan in the first place. I mean, I have one, I use it a little bit, but it's not my favorite social network. I don't really spend a lot of time on there. I think that if I was Elon Musk and I was thinking about this, I would probably sort of zig when everyone else zags. I would go against the grain, and I would pretty much implement the $8 a month check mark. I think he's rich enough that he can sort of fund this for a long time to see where it goes. I tend to believe a little bit more in sort of a decentralized approach. There isn't anything like that quite at that scale, so I think that you would have a chance to sort of stand out from Instagram and TikTok. So personally, I think that might be the better move. So look, by no means do I think that's a solution that would make a good future for Twitter. It would just make a slightly less awful one, in my opinion, or at least it would be like different enough that it could provide some variety compared to the other major platforms. So I've heard people say before that advertising is like the internet's original sin. That sort of set the tone for so many different business models that were mostly about extracting our data and giving us a free product. In some cases, it probably is good to just pay for a product and maybe have the company not as interested in taking that data from you. His current payroll is nothing compared to his net worth. Like, he can float this business for so many years, decades, it doesn't matter. Even if it just ends up being like the branch of his personal opinion, he can totally afford to do that. The way people are engaged right now, he's getting more free advertising and getting more people on Twitter, and he's got to be just having a lot of fun right now. This is totally a game to him, in my opinion. And for me, it was just fun to, have this thought that felt like a new lens to view this conversation through. I've been reading so much, and every news organization feels like they're tackling the whole like Elon buys Twitter thing in such a similar way. And I just had this thought like, man, nobody is really asking about which way the company is going to make money and how that is going to influence the data and the artificial intelligence systems which learn over time what to do. And I just thought it was very explanatory in my head. It seemed like it was a question worth asking, and I appreciate you being here to listen. And as promised, here's an image of a robot in a dreamy art world experiencing immortality. I appreciate the comment coming from Tim. We only have like 630 subscribers, so we don't always get a request in the comments, so I felt like my last video where I didn't have one, I was really disappointed, and Tim came through and he said he also was disappointed by the fact that nobody requested an image. So to make sure that I have one, he gave me that. So thanks, Tim. I appreciate you keeping the trend alive. And in the comments below, I would love it if you guys would give me your opinion. Do you think it would be good? Do you want to pay $8 a month for Twitter? Or would you rather just keep the advertising model so you can just go in there and check it out however you want, and they try to clean it up for advertisers, and there's always that middleman. So I'm curious your thoughts below. What do you think the better future for Twitter is? If you were Elon Musk, what would you do?